Hi everybody, welcome to this p5.js tutorial. Today we're going to be reviewing some things that we already know about p5.js, and we're going to look at some new tips and tricks just to help us get started thinking about an end of course project idea. We're going to be looking at a BMI Calculator app. We're going to be using p5.js canvas. Of course, we need some text boxes. We need some input boxes. And we're definitely going to need a button. Okay. Now, one thing about this is in the setup function before we've been using the text function to draw text onto the canvas, for example. But I was messing around with the p5 reference and I found this create p function. I can create p tags in my app. Okay, now to demonstrate that, I'm going to create a variable called title label, and I'm going to assign a p tag to it. And the p tag is going to be my title. Okay, now if I save that and I refresh my page, yay, I've got a p tag. Now to prove it, let's go to inspect. There it is, there's a p tag. Okay, so for those of you who know about web design, we can use p5.js to create different kinds of HTML tags in our app. We're also going to be looking later at how to create a div, which is also quite an interesting way of styling an app. We'll look at that later. I was also messing around with the reference and I discovered that I can add classes to style elements on my canvas. And we'll look at that in today's tutorial as well. And there's also an opportunity to use the child function. We'll look at how to do that in today's tutorial. So let's go back to our app prototype. I've already designed my title, but I want to style it. Now this is a p tag, so I'm going to go into the style section of my document and style p tags. I'm going to say all of my p tags will be blue. They will have a font size of 36 pixels, and we're going to put them in the center of the web page. Okay, so let's save that and let's refresh. Yay, there you go. My CSS is styling any p tag that it finds in the body of the web page. Okay. Now I just want to make one thing clear. As we resize the page, everything shifts according to the width of the window. Okay, so that's really what this function down here is doing that you may have seen when you downloaded the template. Okay, just managing the resizing of the window. Okay, you might also have seen that this time we're creating a canvas which is the full window. It's the full web page. Okay, the reference point is the top left corner up here. And the Z index is set to -1. Now look what happens if we don't do that. Just going to comment that out. Let's save it, refresh, and you'll see the canvas is always on top of everything else, and we don't want that. We want the canvas to be behind all of the content. That's what that line of code does. Okay. All right, let's continue. We need a few more text boxes, enter your weight and enter your height. So let's go back into the setup function and create some more p tags. In fact, I'm just going to copy that one. I'm going to call this one weight label. Enter your weight in kilograms. And we'll do the same for the height label. Enter your height in meters. And let's save that and just see what it looks like at the moment. I don't want these p tags to be the same as other p tags. I want them to be different. So again, we're going to go up into our CSS section. This time, we're going to create a rule, sometimes called a class in CSS. Starts with a dot in the style section. I'm going to create a rule for, I'm going to call it, let's just call it label text. Doesn't matter what you call it. And any label text is just going to have a color that's black, a font size, which is, let's say, 18 pixels, and we're going to align it onto the left side. Text align, left. And let's apply this class to these two labels. So we actually have to do that using the add class that we just found in the reference. There it is, add class. Let's just make sure we know how to use this. Blah blah dot add class, single quotation marks, and then the name of the class. Okay. So weight label dot add class, single quotation marks, and then the name of the class, which is label text. And we'll do the same for the height label as well. So let's see if that's worked. Yay, okay. Let's give it a bit of a margin on the left side. Let's say 24 pixels. We'll save that. And both of them have a bit of a margin here, just to push them into the app a little bit more. Okay, now let's continue. After the weight label, I want the weight input box. So again, let's create a variable. I'm going to call it weight input. We'll use the create input. And we'll do the same for height input after the label. Let's save that and refresh. Yes, okay. Let's see what happens if we push them in the same as we did. Let's try and apply this rule to these input boxes, just to see what will happen. So weight input dot add class, single quotation, label text. That was the label text class. This one here. And we'll do the same for the height input. Save that and refresh. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Now what I want to do, I got really excited when I saw this. The create div. Where was that? We can create a div in p5.js. So let's do that. I'm going to create my div after the title, because I want my div to be this area here under the title. Okay, so let's have a look at how to do this. I'm going to call it container1. We're going to create a div. And into this div, we're going to put the label and the input, the label and the input. These four elements we're going to put into the div. So my container1 is going to have some children. The weight label, the height label, the weight input, and the height input. Okay, so these are all children of this container. Now let's save that and refresh. Nothing happens. Let's do label and then the input. Let's do it in order. I think that matters. So first the weight label, then the weight input, then the height label, then the height input. Save it again. Yes, that's what we want. Nothing too special, you may say. But let's style our container1. I'm going to create, you've guessed it, a class. I'm going to call it container1 style. And I'm going to say, okay, background, is going to be grey. I'm going to give it some border radius of 24 pixels. I'm going to give it some padding on the inside of 24 pixels. And let's give it some margin as well. Now don't worry if you're not sure about these ideas. If you mess around with the numbers, you'll figure out what's going on. Now let's apply this class to the container. Okay, so container1 dot add class, single quotation. What did I call it again? Container1 style. Now let's save that and refresh the page. Yay! It's kind of funky. Okay, so mess around with that and see if you can figure out what's going on. The final thing I want to do is create a button. And we're going to call it Calculate BMI. So let's just save that and refresh. Boom! Now, your challenge is really to figure out how to style that. Can you make it look attractive using the ideas that we've just been playing with so far in this tutorial? Okay. Now, when we click that button, we're going to call a function. I'm going to call this function Calculate BMI. And of course, I need to go and design this function. Doesn't matter where you do it, but don't design it inside another function. So after the draw function, I'm going to design a new function. Now I need to get the value from this weight input. So there's the weight input box, dot value. I also need to grab the value, I'm going to call it height, from the height input box. So let's just create variables to store this data. Then we can process it later. And now we can do a calculation, which is, if I remember correctly, the weight divided by the height squared. So height squared is just height multiplied by height. There might be another way of doing that. And to see if it worked, let's just use console.log. BMI, just to see if we get a result. Should be, let's see if that works. Let's open up the console. Now let's input a weight, let's say 65. We'll input a height, 1 meter and 65 centimeters. Calculate BMI. Yes, there we go. So it works. Now your challenge is not to put the answer into the console. Can you put the answer onto the app page? Okay, so you need to figure out how to do that. Now we've also been told that a programmer has designed a function to put a pulsar onto the screen, and they've designed a function to do that. So let's copy the pulsar code and just paste it. Whoops. Paste the function. There it is. I'm going to delete all the comments. So this is the pulsar function. Make sure it starts there and it finishes down there. This is the pulsar code. And we're going to call the function inside draw. So call the function, and all of this is going to happen. Now let's very quickly, we're told that we need to create some global variables. So let's create those variables. One called growth and one called one called rad. What was it called? Rad. And in the setup function, we're going to give them some starter values of 1. Now let's see if it works. Yay, okay. It nearly works. Oh, that looks good. Ooh, okay. Okay, that's the end of the tutorial. See if you can continue onto the challenges.